how are you doing?
Oh, yes. No, I totally got it.
Lucy, you're muted.
And she did. She put it in her mouth and then for me.
Can we,
Oh, yeah, Lucy, you're still muted.
Am I not, now can I talk now?
you can,
So-
I'm gonna start talking,
We're doing good, we just got back this morning, and
because I got so many on. I
it's
don't,
kind of on restricted activity for a month, so.
oh, wow,
Remember prayer.
yes. So, I'm gonna get, actually, I'm gonna get my phone.
Okay, let's see. Oh, Lois and Dan, yay! And Rich and Chris, good to see you. Daniel B, Jim. Okay, I don't have glasses on, so I'm gonna go from glasses so I can see people. How many people let me know?
So I can't see who the three screens are off to my left. Oh, that's Pastor Paul, and Dan and Lois, and that's Dot. Is Jim listed as Jim?
I don't think so.
So, is that Dot, is that?
That's Jim Wilson.
That's Jim Wilson, okay, thank you.
Okay.
And then I see where we have Ken Kelch on. And of course, Dennis and Linda. And Michael, hello, Michael.
Hey.
And then I've got Chris and Rick Ritter. And let's see, I think I have Dan, it looks like I have Dan and Lois on twice, but that's okay. And then I see Christine. And I've lost that kind of sideways again. Yeah. People keep it, we're trying to get all the screens set up so I can see everybody, so I don't miss anybody.
Do we need a camera on camera?
Yeah, we need one camera.
And rats, they're getting ready to put the camera on me.
Makeup.
Yeah, where's my makeup? Where's my makeup when I need it? Okay. In order to not waste paper, I'm reading this off my phone, so.
Do you want an iPad, Karen?
No, I can just read it off my phone, that's fine. So I'm going to start out with just a brief,
Prayer.
yes, thank you. With a brief prayer, and then we'll go into some background and then discussion. Dear Lord, as we gather here today to further your mission and our work in this church, please allow open and honest dialogue. Allow all of our questions and with answers to be pondered as we go into our meeting next week. We ask this in your name, Jesus Christ. Amen. So, in background, well, I can't think about how many years I've sat on council. I've been in and out and in and out and in and out for a very long time. But we've always had a very, very tight budget, very tight. And it does get tighter. I mean, that's the reality of it all. So the council, as we were discussing budgets and monies and assets, we inquired as to the possibility of selling the Berg House. And for those who don't know the Berg House, of course, that's 706 West 10th Street, so it's right next to the church. So we contacted a realtor to give us a very quick overview. She went through the building and looked at comparables, et cetera, and so on, and came back with a market analysis and suggested that if we were to list the Berg house, we should ask in the area of $397,000. So that information was then presented to the council, and the council at the last meeting developed a resolution. And that resolution is with the booklet, and it's also in the order, it's in the Friday announcements, if you're looking for that as well. And it outlined what we would suggest we do if we sell that asset. So that's where I'm going to begin the discussion. And first, I'm going to open it up to any questions that we might have here in the sanctuary. Bob Mosley has a question. I'm going to repeat questions to make sure everybody can hear it. So if you want to
Step up to the mic.
Were there any other options put on the table at the council meeting, or any other form of discussions? Were there any other options about the use of the workhouse?
The question was, were there any other discussions about the use of the Berg house? And in the past, we have discussed about a number of things with regards to use of the Berg house. One being emergency shelter for a family. And then, of course, that has changed into Thrush Hill using it as a music studio. That's how it is now. So there has been discussion as to other uses. They were not explored right now for the simple fact that, one, we wanted to know what the market analysis was. Secondly, in defining what we would use the Berg house for if we were to keep it, we felt that was a part of the discernment process that we need to be going through. So we didn't talk about how we could use that further. We just wanted to get the information out for people to understand. Now, the discussion that we did have with regards to using it for emergency housing was the fact that currently the church supports housing, Family Promise, thank you very much. The Family Promise program through use of the basement, but we don't support Family Promise financially. And then secondly was the fact that if that were something for us to do as part of our ministry, emergency housing, which was the original thought of the Berg house, would it be possible to do that in another facility or another home versus a $390,000 asset? Bob has another question again.
I think when that idea that you just mentioned was explored in council, it was to investigate the possibility of using it as an emergency shelter and having it brought back up to code. As
Correct.
it sits now, it's problematic that we'll even be able to sell it if a bank gets involved. So the issue was that we had information, just information, cursory information, that there was plenty of grants out there at that time, and I'm talking about, this was under Pastor Sue's leadership when she was here, that we had grants available to find the emergency housing for people in families, primarily, who had lost their home for one reason or another. They would have a place to stay on a temporary basis. The grants
Correct.
were available. There is a prominent contractor in town who rehabbed our narthex. He was the one, Bruce
Stanton.
Denton,
Yeah.
who did this. And if my memory serves me, he works with homeless groups.
Correct.
Either on a committee or something, so he's involved. At that time, and I'm saying at that time, so this was just a possibility of investigation, and we couldn't go forward with it. Just to see what the possibility was, to bring that house back up to standard, to good condition, and use it. And as I understand grants, they have a lifetime, a life cycle, and then they run out, as far as our obligation to keep it in that program that the grant was designed for. So at one point down the road, we would take it back over again as whatever we want to do with it. And Family Promise could have still operated that way for us. We wouldn't have to get involved. We might not have to even pay bills as we do now. And that's the sticking point, is that the folks, the nonprofit that's in there, the music group that's in there, a nonprofit, and I have nothing against them. I know a little bit about Todd. Nice guy. I even gave him my phone number back in the day when I was working as a kind of an emergency service contact for the church. There's nothing wrong with the program, but they don't seem to be paying their way. I think that's one of the issues here, as to losing money. In fact, I believe the budget has $5,200 in it for this maintenance of this building, which I think includes the utilities and everything else wrapped into it. I don't know what the itemized situation would be under just a maintenance line item, but $5,200, it seems like a lot just for maintenance when we don't do anything over there. So it has to include the utilities, electric, energy costs, or everything.
Correct.
So it seems to me that does anybody know here or at home how we got into this situation where we don't appear to even have a rental agreement with them? That they can stay there, but they have to give us a return. As a landlord in the community, they would never put up with this. They don't wind up paying our bills when we rent a house. We have to pay our own bills. They've got a good deal over there. And has anybody looked at that approach of having them, as opposed to them having to leave? I mean, that's one or the other. And can you pay your way, or if you can't afford to, then that's problematic for them. But if either way, they gotta go. I mean, if they can't pay their bills, they gotta go.
Well, I'm
Being
going to ask
points
people.
there, so I just want to make sure that all
Yes.
of what you said gets addressed.
So, were people on Zoom able to hear what Bob had said?
Jim Wilson did.
Okay.
Yes, not heard.
Okay, that's good. All right. Thank you, because otherwise I would try to summarize it as best I could. I think that, well, there are a number of things. We've talked about that. One, we don't have rental agreements, we have facility use agreements. So that's the important part to it. Secondly, over this year, of course, they were shut down and, and not using the facility. But we still had fixed costs. I mean, we still have to heat it to some extent and keep the water and all those things going. So we had those fixed costs. Secondly, yes, we have a facility use or a utilities that the facility has to use, but also then there's the maintenance, and we've limped along. And so when we were going through the budget, trying to figure out what it is we were going to do and further our mission with the church. That's when the question came as to, we have an asset. The asset is not being used fully to its capability, but we're not even sure what that capability is. And could that monies, if we were to sell the building, could those monies be used elsewhere in our ministry? Or did we want to define a very specific use for that building? Now, back when we discussed the use of the building for an emergency housing, Family Promise and Housing First did not exist. And so there was this tremendous need. I remember, and I'm going to refer back to some people that were on the council with me when we went through this and go even further, but it was going to be at least $50,000 to bring that house up to code. That's what it was gonna cost to bring it up to code so that we could use it for emergency shelter. I mean, we would have to recost that out if that's not the case. The other part to that would be, and the reason that I say that it was 50,000, now I'm going to backtrack that a little bit, Jim, because Jim's online. When you redid the windows, Jim, do they all meet egress requirements now?
Yes, they all meet egress with the exception of the basement. I did not replace any windows in the basement, so you cannot put anyone sleeping in the basement.
Correct, okay. I just wanted to make sure, because that, when we first priced that out, that did not include, that included replacing windows, but Jim replaced them, so that cost, I'm not sure if the $50,000 would hold as it is. The second part to that was, as we talk about those services available and what we would need to do to bring it up to code, would be the other side to the coin as to who is going to operate a program like that. That was the question. Who would operate a program like that and what it would take? Bob?
Just a comment while Jim is on the line. I have to compliment him, like I complimented Mike, for the work that he did on that house.
Correct.
Over a couple of summers. He had some help, but it's primarily him. However, it is still lipstick on a pig. I hate saying that. Did someone walk through that building with the realtor?
I did.
And did you point out the plumbing problems?
I told her of the plumbing problems.
Okay. Did you
I
also?
showed her the basement and the fact that the windows, I was pretty sure the windows downstairs, and she looked at them, so they did not meet egress. I told her about what we had replaced and the site. The market analysis that she gave us with the suggested listing price is an as-is.
Did you point out that if the basement floods, that there's no place for the water to leave the basement except for the toilet?
Yes.
Okay, she knows that.
She knows that, and that's why what she gave us as a suggested listing price is an as-is.
Oh, boy.
Yes.
Okay, as a sidebar to this, like I said, if a bank gets involved, it's going to be significantly difficult for a buyer to borrow money in that as-is condition. The bank's not going to do that. At least my understanding of how banks work with homeowners who take on a mortgage. So typically, it's on the seller to bring it to code. And there are so many code violations over there that it's going to cost us a significant amount of money to bring that up to this 397 threshold to get that kind of value out of it. Now, if it's an
Hey,
ad.
Bob, can I interrupt you 1 second? This is Christine. Actually, as an as-is, when it's being sold as an as-is, the bank is aware of that. The buyer and the seller agree as to once an engineer comes through and determine what like money would be left in an escrow to fix stuff so that it's not completely on the seller. From what I understand in our explorations of as-is selling right now.
So the banks are willing to take on that risk if there's money available in an escrow account, you're saying?
Yes, what they do is they take the appraised value, which is usually, doesn't do like an engineer's thing, an appraised value, or an as-is done as with comparables. And then engineer's report would determine what has to be done. And then in the agreed upon amount, the buyers and the sellers agree how much is going to be withheld from the escrow amount to pay for the purchases. So banks will do it under those conditions.
Okay, so is a bank going to kind of settle the whole issue by bringing in an engineer? Do you think, Kristen?
Well, I think that would be,
No, the realtors, and that's why you have a realtor, they help with that kind of stuff, but you get the bank will approve a buyer based on their credit and knowing that it's an as-is and that it's, gonna have an engineer's report, and then the buyers and sellers agree going over the engineer's report. And then some of the stuff on an as-is is like, because otherwise, if we were to go and fix everything, it wouldn't be selling for $390,000, it would be selling for a lot more. So the as-is because we're not gonna fix those things.
and
So we could walk away from that building for, let's assume that the 397,000 is a fair value. As is,
yes,
that's beyond my comprehension. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
I think it's gonna cost a lot more than $50,000 to rehab that house. They do know that they're gonna have to take the strip back to the studs to replace the plumbing.
yes.
I know it's not our problem, but it's this cost in escrow that I'm thinking about. You're gonna have to have a lot of money in escrow, the bank is,
I,
to do that.
if I could,
Okay,
just my discussions with the realtor,
okay.
one was the as-is and telling her what the issues were. And secondly, she said that it would close probably within a month,
At that
of
price.
which
At that
she
price.
picked me back up off the floor. And, yes, and she was going through all the comparables in the community, including the house right behind us here,
Right.
which sold, it was a house and a lot, which the inside of the house had to be completely gutted and was sold as an as-is. So that is why we've discussed this. We all understand Juneau real estate, and we all understand the ups and downs of what's happened in Juneau throughout the years. We all who have lived here long enough. And that's when we ask for a realtor to give us an honest assessment as to what could we sell this building for as is. And that was what the number was. So, we all know that there's ups and downs. Evidently, right now is a very up period. And that's when I said, when she told me it would close in a month, I was flabbergasted. So,
And we don't mind moving a few fences, because that's what we'll have to do.
yes,
But
and
that's
we would,
fine.
yes, we would have to move the fence. I don't know if people understand how the lot works, but it goes straight back. It would not affect the garage, and I'm not sure how much of the parking lot it would take. We would have to move the oil tank and the fencing. So,
What oil tank, what,
the
new
church,
tank
yeah. The new church tank is sitting,
is at least partly on
Oh,
Berg
oh,
property.
right, yeah. So we would have to move that as well. So, those are the discussions that the council has had. And we are looking for guidance and possibly agreement with regards to an asset that we own that we do not feel we are utilizing to its fullest. Does that make sense? That's where all this discussion started.
well, I was coming at the direction of a better use for the building and still under our ownership, but apparently that's not gonna be possible.
I'm not saying that it's not possible, but we felt it was necessary to get an idea as to if we were to sell, what would that mean as far as money, time, et cetera, and so on and on and on. So that's where we came up with that.
Boy, if you could get $397,000 in the bank, you could forward fund the budget.
Well, that's the second part to that, the sale. So we had, if we were to sell the building, then we proposed a resolution, and that's attached, so if people understand that. So it was to pay back all the dedicated accounts, of which we've kind of borrowed money from, to handle any overages for this year, to pay for a discernment process, and we said $30,000. We're not positive what discernment would cost us, but that would give us money for us to do a rigorous discernment process. And then whatever was left over, we would put into an account whereby the congregation then could decide what it is they want to do with the money with regards to the church and its ministries. So that's the proposal that has been put before the group. So, I am going to do a roll call just because I want to make sure that everybody has a chance and that they're not muted and trying to talk. So, according to my upper left-hand corner, Dennis and Linda, do you have questions? Okay, you're muted, yeah. Okay. I think you're okay now.
No, we're hearing, ML Peterson, Mary Lou. Linda, you need to unmute.
Yeah, Linda, you need to unmute. I'm looking for Linda and Dennis.
Okay, I don't have a question at this time. Well, I don't have a question, but a comment. I really think that, I hate to see losing an asset, and one that could be very valuable to us in terms of community outreach in the future. I think we need to do some more belt tightening, and I just think that asset is really, really important to us. That's my only comment.
The comment that I have is this, is that I don't see anything that's in place right now that sure, it satisfies this budget, this year's budget, maybe next year's budget, but is there, I haven't heard anything that really would tell me that once that money's gone, are we gonna be in the same boat that we're in now? Yeah, I don't see anything that would convince me that once the money's gone, we could be in the same boat, but we don't have that asset. That's basically what I have right now.
Okay, next I have Lucy.
Do you wanna address those, or are you just gonna see them?
Were those, I was gonna say, were those questions or were those
Dennis,
just
it
concerns?
sounded like a question.
What happens when we run out of assets?
Yeah, mine was basically a statement, it was not necessarily, no, it's kind of a question that, you know, once this money is gone, I don't see anything that would prevent us to be in the same predicament again. It's basically a statement, and I'm not convinced of what I'm seeing right now, that sure, it'll pay back accounts, that'll give us some money, but the reason we're in this predicament right now is we're not receiving enough money to sustain the budget. And I haven't heard very much at all as far as belt tightening, sacrifices that will have to be made. I just don't see any of that, but in a year, 2 or 3, we're going to be in the same boat. That's basically my main concern.
We're looking for comments on that.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say, I think your comments are well-founded, and it's something that we've been discussing, because we've been discussing this, and as things are starting to open up.
Karen, I know you're facing the screen, but
Oh.
you need to turn around and face the microphone and the camera, it's
Okay.
not the screen.
Oh, I have to face that, because I was trying to talk to, when we discussed all of this, what stays most in our mind with regards to the council, and I've got council members here who, if I'm totally off base, please jump in. One, we have to go through this discernment process. We have to define what it is we want to be and where we want to go in the future. Those are important things for us. To do it in the existing budget is not going to be possible, and this is something that we all need to be involved with. So in addressing your concern, Dennis, I think that's the concern of all of us on the council too, is if we were to sell the Berg house, what is it that we want to be, and how are we going to sustain those? And it's something that we've got to all seriously look at through a discernment process, and we haven't been able to yet. We are riding in a perfect storm. So there are all those questions as to how we're going to work the current budget, how we're going to continue on with our ministries and the things that we do, and then thirdly, knowing that the Berg house is there and the price that it was given to us with regards to selling it versus how we're going to utilize it to its max use, knowing that we have to define where we're going to go as a congregation.
Karen, can you
Yes.
still hear me?
Yes.
We have a hard time hearing because there's a little one with a lot of chatter that kind of overrides whatever the speaker is saying. I'm not sure who that is.
Okay. Well, and I did face away from the camera for a while, so it might have been that you did not hear me all through that.
No,
Okay.
it was a little voice, a wee voice, a happy wee voice.
Okay. So, did I answer the questions or address some of the issues that you brought up, Dennis and Linda?
We'd just be interested in just carry on and we may come back.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the
And I
next.
don't know how to unmute me. Can you unmute me?
I'm looking at my technical crew.
Yeah, Clarice, you can mute her, right? And I'm unmuted.
You are muted.
Unmuting an issue, only you can unmute yourself. I can ask you to unmute, but I can't physically unmute you.
Oh, okay. But then you can mute them. Okay. So I'm going to go next to Lucy. And Lucy, you have to unmute yourself. We can mute you, but we can't unmute you.
Okay, am I okay now?
Yes, you are okay.
I have very mixed feelings about this. I understand the need to get some more money, an infusion of money. I was rather encouraged that we didn't have to borrow from our dedicated accounts as much as we expected we would this year. So I'm always the optimistic one that, well, next year, well, it'll be even less, and maybe we'll dig ourselves out of this hole. But that, you know, we can't predict the future. I think for me, it's too soon a decision to make a decision to sell the house without exploring, talking to Housing First or things to see if we let them have the house, what would they do with it? And without any cost to the church. And I just think it's a little too soon to make a decision to sell. I guess that's where I am right now.
Okay. Next on my list, I have Ken Kelch.
Thanks, Karen. One of the things that strikes me is that we have a set of plans in the office of expanding the church. And to expand it, it has to go, the sanctuary in particular, it has to go out behind you. And it would take the Berg house in. We've talked a lot about discernment, but if we go through a 2-year, 3-year discernment and come back and say, we really should be providing housing in the community, the house is gone. If it comes back and say, you know, we should have a studio, we should expand the sanctuary, our property is gone. So I think we're way ahead. I think using an analogy on growing up on a farm, you don't eat the seed corn. So we should figure out if we're going to stay in farming before we eat the seed corn. And that's what we would be doing by selling the Berg property at this time. I don't have any questions. I'm interested in the conversation.
Okay. Next, I have Connie Olson.
My concerns are the same as Dennis's, and I don't think I have anything to add to that. I agree with him.
With regards to the plan, should down the line we run out of the money and then we don't have the asset nor the money?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure of all of Dennis's comments that we had the same for you. Okay, Connie. Next I have Lois, and then I have Lois and Dan. I'm assuming that that's the same people. So I've got two different screens, one for Lois and one for Lois and Dan. So whoever wants to come off of mute and... Oh, they may not have microphones?
We have a microphone.
Oh.
Can you hear us?
There, we got you.
Okay, this is Lois, and my thought is that with an upcoming discernment process, we should find a means to do that before we sell the Berg house, because it might mean that once the Berg house is sold, it's gone. But if the discernment process involves that house, it's gone and we can't do anything about it. So I think we need to find a way to do this discernment process before we think of selling the house.
Okay. let's see, up in the corner there is Michael
Oh.
Schroeder.
Oh.
Can Dan talk?
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize.
No problem. Just a couple of minor things. As everyone knows, a realtor's estimate is not a real appraisal. And I would wonder if the council would entertain getting a professional appraiser to come in. And the reason for that is when they do an appraisal, they give a lot of facts and a lot of background about the place. In other words, to sell something as is, where is, you can sell a boat that way, but I don't think you can be very successful selling a house that way. What I'd be afraid of is that somebody with cash that does not need to go to a bank, does not need to have an engineer come in, would come in there with a very low offer and be able to walk away with the house and put anything they might want on that lot. And I'm not sure that, you know, a McDonald's or something, if they could move in there next to a church, would be a good idea. And there's just a question here then, we're only talking about the one lot that the house occupies and not the parking lot?
Correct.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Okay, now we'll go up to Michael.
Okay, well, first of all, I'm kind of new to this, and I kind of wanted to find out what all the ins and outs were for the Berg house. So after I've heard these people, I have a couple of things that I'm just thinking about. I'm not making any suggestions or anything. Number one, obviously what we're doing right now is not sustainable. Everybody knows that, even me. Number two, I'm kind of leaning a little bit with Dennis in that if we sell the property, is that just going to stick the fingers in the dike for a couple more years and then we're back to where we are? And if that's the case, then we bought ourselves 2 years and here we are again. And, you know, I don't know what the council's plans are and how they'd use the money, what changes would be made to sustain us further down the road. And, you know, that's really all I'm thinking about right now. I had no background at all on the Berg house, except I was down in the basement one time unloading stuff. So that's all I know. And I'll go back to mute now and let somebody more knowledgeable speak.
Thanks, Michael. It's good to see you.
You too.
Okay, I've got Jim and Dot on different, so I don't know if you're together or if, I'll let Jim talk first and then Dot.
Okay. Well, I agree with the speaker a few minutes ago about getting an appraisal, and I'll even agree to pay for the appraisal. And the other thing, I've got several questions on this comparable price analysis that the young lady did for us. If you do a little math on it, we've got square footages from 1,955 feet down to 972 feet. And I don't think the house is it's probably around 1,400. I don't know if anyone knows the square footage in it or not, including the basement. And the other thing, when I worked on it, of course, I went all through the house, and it's structurally pretty sound. And I did put in new electric service from the street to the circuit breaker panel, but everything inside, all the wiring inside, basically is going to have to be replaced. Excuse me, because it's only 2 wires, and Dan's son told him today that we'd either have to put in ground fault on all switches, and that would be as expensive as rewiring, probably, be about the same cost. And the plumbing it's got to be completely replaced. I did get the downstairs bathroom working, but just barely. And I did put in a new drain in the sink in the kitchen, but that's really the only plumbing improvement that's been done. I think Ken has got a good point, though, is that the time to sell it And as Dennis said, if we sell it, we may be right back where we were, and then may not. We may be in good shape and want to expand. I don't really have the questions other than the ones on the what the square footage is and what the square footage is of the lot that it's sitting on.
Jim, I'm pretty sure, I can't be positive, but I'm pretty sure she pulled those off of the city assessors. She said she would base it off of that. So.
Well, you're missing the point. If you divide out the total price that she's got by the square footage she's got, none of the square footage are the same. She didn't use, I don't know what the hell she used for I don't know what she used for square footage, because if you take the highest one down in the bottom, 453,000.
Did you mute yourself, Jim, or did he? Okay, he muted.
Back now?
You're back.
Did you get my questions or not?
No, you stopped at the 4,300.
Oh, okay. Well, that comes out at 972 square feet. And then if you go up to the 322,000, it comes out at 1,955 square feet. And obviously the house doesn't change size. We need to know what size it is. I don't know. I think it's a very poor comparable. Usually they'll give you what they used as comparables in computing their price, but I don't see that anyplace either.
Well, we didn't include all the comparables that she used because we were concerned about a confidentiality issue, because it was a confidential report given to us. So yes, we could go for a formal. This was a quick walk through. Give me your ideas with regards to the house and how much it's worth, so that we could at least have a dollar amount to even consider what are the possibilities with regards to the house. So that was the questions, and what's the market, timelines, et cetera, and so on. So out of the goodness of her heart, she came and did that for free. So yes, it would be a possibility that we could get an official appraisal, yes. And odds, and if we decided that we wanted to sell it, we probably would have to have an official appraisal. But this was so we could have a starting point and discuss that. So, Dot, are you right? Are you right there too?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Yes.
Okay. I have a.
Yeah. Okay, Jim and Dot, you're too close together. That's why we're getting an echo off of you, Dot.
Anyway, I know that.
Okay.
I have a couple of things. One is, right now, if she gave these prices, she must know somebody who's ready to buy that house. So she must know or somebody, maybe somebody on the campus who's ready to buy that house and what they plan to do with it. I think that is a concern for the church. And right now, with the Juneau's tourism being so down this summer, there's not going to be much money coming into the city because we don't have any cruise ships. And I just think that it's not a good time to sell something if you want to get optimum. Because you got the capital creep, so you have the legislators looking for ways to get out of town all the time. And I just am concerned with what would happen to that piece of property if you sold it to somebody who wanted to come in, raise it to the ground, and put up a big apartment building there, which might be what they would want to do. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, now you and Jim can sit next to each other again. I see, let's see, Mary Lou.
I'm most confused. I agree with Dennis and Ken, Connie, their comments. One thing I want to bring up, I know, well, as you all know, we've always had to worry about the budget. In the past, every time we had a change in pastors, we'd have, we'd have short, not necessarily an intern pastor like we did last time. We had Mark for a whole year. We had to pay his salary and his lodging. And in the past, it seems like every time we'd have a change in pastors, it would be a breathing spell where we didn't have to pay a big salary. And we get caught up, kind of, because then we just pay for somebody come $100 for a session or to do the sermon or something, or maybe local people would, or congregational members would do it. You know, it always was a kind of a breather. We could get it caught up, but of course, as you know, we didn't have that chance this last time. In fact, I think it probably costs more having an interim, but. I just really hate the idea of selling the place because of all everybody else's comments that they've put. Steve is here halfway on, halfway off.
Yeah.
I told him the price anyway. He says, boy, sell it. And that sounds like a very good price. So that's our comments.
Okay. So let's see, I'm gonna look next. Oh.
I just wanted to also remember that, remind everybody that.
Okay, you're gonna come up here and yeah, Lisa is going to have a comment.
I just wanted to make mention that we are having a council meeting on Tuesday, and I'm scribbling some quick notes from each comment from our Zoom folks. Thank you so much. I would ask that perhaps you could also just give me a quick 2 or 3 sentence summary of your thoughts and email it to me so that we can continue to use that information more accurately than my chicken scratch to keep the discussion going when we come together as council on Tuesday. Please, if you would. Or send it to any of us, and so that we can kind of, re-look at all of the comments. But like I said, I'm just kind of quickly jotting some thoughts that people are throwing out there, and I really appreciate it.
Yes, I think I can speak for the entire council.
Excuse me.
Dot.
I'm not sure I have Lisa's email address. Just send it to the church?
Yes, you can send it to RLC office, or Lisa specifically is Sitka Nurse at gmail.com. But you can always send them to the office.
Probably just send it to the office.
Okay, thank you, Dot. Oh, next I see I have Chris and Rick Ritter. Have I lost Chris and Rick? Yeah, unmute yourself, please. Chris and Rick, you are unmuted. Chris and Rick? I'm going to go to Christine Cadigan McAdoo real fast because, but Chris and Rick, if you get on, please let me know that you're on. Okay, Christine, did you have any other comments to make?
No, I kind of lean towards, some of the other comments about getting rid of an asset before we finish our discernment. And when I was, looking over the numbers of what it costs to keep the Berg house right now, it doesn't seem like that is our biggest financial burden. And perhaps, doing the discernment first might provide us more information for what we need to do with that asset. But that's my only thought and comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. So Chris and Rick, do I have you back on?
Hey, Karen.
Yes.
Hey, Kelch, why don't you just have them call you on your cell phone?
Oh, well, yeah, that won't work. Okay. Yeah. So it might be that you're unmuting because you guys are on twice, you might be unmuting the wrong thing. My technical crew, with all of their expertise.
Chris and Rick are typing back and forth with you though, right?
Yeah, we're in contact, just trying to figure out how to get them unmuted.
Okay, we're just holding on real fast because Chris and,
I can't unmute your phone. I can only ask you to unmute your phone.
okay, Chris.
On Zoom, by the way, is #6.
#6 on Zoom will unmute you. If you're calling in on your phone. Because we can't unmute, we can only mute people. So if we can get Chris and Rick on a #6, if you're on the phone.
If you're not on the phone, next to your picture is a little microphone.
If you're not on the phone, down in the corner, your little picture will unmute you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Is that Chris and Rick?
Okay, we got it.
Yay!
Thank you.
Yay! Okay. You have the floor, Chris and Rick.
So, this has been a really interesting discussion, and very much what has already been said is in line with Rick's and my thinking, particularly the comments by Dennis, Jim, and Ken. But one thing that I don't think has been brought up, how aware is Synod of sort of the crisis that is going on here with our particular congregation? And has any serious discussion been made with Synod and the bishop as to how they might help us financially through this period of time? I mean, we've in the past, we've been very generous in supporting other mission churches and other entities within the Lutheran Church as a whole. And it seems appropriate that we should be exploring what help, until we can go through this discernment process and determine what is causing the hardship, making these serious decisions that have a really long-term effect on the direction this church can proceed in the future, seems premature until we've explored help outside.
We specifically have not talked, I mean, the pastor, or I was gonna say the bishop. Yes, we have, and, yeah, the council has talked to the bishop a number of times with regards to, the church, us specifically. All the churches in Alaska are in predicaments right now, just because of the year of COVID. That's just the way it is. So we've discussed that. We have not specifically asked for, will you fund it and how can we do that? We have not done that. So I can easily give Bishop Shelley a call and ask her if that's a possibility and how we could do that. So I will do that before Tuesday's meeting. And Pastor Karen has a comment. And get near a mic.
Oh, sorry, did I?
Yep.
Turn it back on? How about that? Okay. Are all mics live except for?
One right there I can turn on for you.
Okay. Are we on?
Yep, you're on.
Okay, so I just wanted to mention that part of the annual meeting is that we elect the voting members who will go to Synod Assembly this year. And there is also 1 or 2 positions on Synod Council that are open. If you've never gone to Synod Assembly, one of the things that we do at Synod Assembly is we approve the Synod budget, because the Synod's budget comes from all the money that is part of our budget. Whatever goes to the Synod from our budget, that's the Synod's budget. And then whoever goes to the Synod Assembly becomes responsible for approving the Synod budget. So I just encourage people in this conversation, especially if you're somebody who's good at looking at and just making these kind of tough decisions, because a lot of the churches in Alaska were having the problem before COVID as well. We actually fared better than most. But to participate in that decision-making process, because ultimately it's not the bishop's decision, it's the assembly's decision.
Correct. And that Synod Assembly will be virtual this year.
Yes.
So when you say go to Synod Assembly,
I'm sorry, yes.
you know, you don't necessarily have to travel. So if you are interested in being a part of that, please let us know, the council know, as we develop all of our different rosters for nominations and as we vote for council, Mission Endowment Fund, nominating committee, and Synod Assembly at the meeting next week. So, Chris and Rick, any other comments, questions?
Not at this time, Karen, thank you.
Thank you. So, now, according to what I see on the screen, I've gotten everyone who's zoomed in. Oh, I'm sorry, is Pastor Paul on still? He was. I've lost him. So, Pastor Paul, we don't have you on screen, and if you are listening to us, that's great. If you have comments or questions, please send us an email. We will be, of course, dealing with this issue at the council meeting on Tuesday at 6:30. You can zoom in on that if you'd like to as well. You can also come. We will socially distance. I want to thank, Pastor Karen has a comment or a question.
And I'm super, super thankful of all the people who stayed and who came as well. I know you're going to do that thanking as well. But I wanted to mention that the reports are now available. So you can look at the actuals for 2020 and what the different categories are that council's proposing for 2021. And certainly then, if you have ideas or changes that you'd like to make, participate in council, or, present that to the meeting next week so that we're prepared and we've thought through, well, what are our other options?
Correct. So do I have any other comments from the floor?
Yeah. Hi.
Oh.
Is this possible for Dan to make a comment?
Yes, Dan?
Okay, I just have a clarification request. At a recent resolution that was put in writing, it clearly says that the officers of the congregation and the council are authorized to proceed with the sale in their best judgment without further action by the congregation. Could you clarify when that might take place without further action or further discussion with the congregation?
Well, that resolution that the council has forwarded to the congregation for the meeting on next Sunday, that's part of the resolution. If the resolution doesn't pass, none of it, of those items listed, will be action items. So those are just what we listed out as to if the resolution were to pass, those were the steps that the council would take and then what would happen with the monies.
That's great. Thank you very much for that clarification.
Okay.
Which can be amended.
Yes, and definitely the resolution that we are proposing could be amended, yes. So that is an option too. So I want to thank everyone. Oh, I'm sorry, Bob.
Yeah, it's.
Bob Mosley is
I
speaking.
keep going back to the little nitpicking thing that bothers the heck out of me is that we've got people staying in the house next door. And it's probably premature to contact them about our discussion unless somebody already has. So at some point down the road, you're gonna have to go to them. If there's any way, oh, you have?
We have gone to them.
And what was their comments?
We gave them a heads up.
What did
And
they say? That's what I'm asking for.
I will go to the horse's mouth, don't take that personally.
So, yeah, I had a couple of conversations with them, and they would love to be able to purchase it because they have made some improvements. They like being there. So they would love to be able to purchase it and continue to run the school. That's their fantasy. Until the congregation, I mean, all I said was, this right now is the conversation we're having. I want you to be aware we're having this conversation, so it's not a surprise. No decision has been made. The council proposes it to the congregation, yada, yada. Anyway, so they realize that. Having an idea what I refer to it as the drive-by estimation lets them know what numbers they're working with. And I don't know whether or not the teachers and the participants in the school are in a position to make that kind of purchase or not. They would love to.
Well, that begs the issue. If they're willing to purchase it, if they can, then certainly they would be able to rent it if they like it so much. And if we could rent that building to them, even for $500 a month, we could wipe out one line item on the budget easily. And I know that doesn't solve the issue of where we are in hemorrhaging here, but it would at least put more drops in the bucket, so to speak. And we would be able to keep the house. I mean, that would, and at least until this discernment process is done, and if that passes, then we go down that road, and then we just figure out whether we need it or not, or what we want to do with it. But it's still there, and we can still have control over it. You sell it, like the comment was made, it's gone. So I would think if they're willing to purchase this house.
I didn't say they were willing to. I said that is they would love to.
Well,
I don't know what position position they are in as a group financially.
Exactly.
I know that Mike has, and sorry not to pick on you, Mike, has pointed out to us that they, in their use agreement, they do have, contribute a certain amount, but they weren't using it this year. They did actually make a donation to us anyway of $2,000. So they, they are doing that. Whether or not that needs to be renegotiated is a different question. But I wanted you to know they are.
So sometime
And then
down the
we
road.
can't rent it. Apparently we can't rent it.
So sometime down the road, it could be revenue neutral.
It could what?
Be revenue neutral, meaning that we're getting out of it at least what we're putting into it financially.
I
Possibly.
think so. It's not my expertise, but I believe so.
Well,
I mean, we know that there needs to be massive renovation to it.
well, outside of the renovations, I'm just talking
Yeah.
about just the utilities alone,
Right.
the oil, everything, all of what we have to pay to keep that thing open.
Correct.
And you just don't walk away from a building.
Okay,
Okay.
yes.
Thank
Now,
you.
I just want to make sure that if you did not hear what Bob was talking about on Zoom, please let me know.
You should be able to hear. I have the volume cranked up pretty high.
I've got Clarice.
Lucy and Meryl have their hand up in the Zoom call.
Lucy has her hand up in the Zoom call. Lucy, you have the floor.
I'm asking her to unmute. Give me 1 second.
Looks like Linda's got her hand up too.
And Linda has her hand up too then? Okay. I love having all this technical. Lucy.
There you go.
Lucy.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I just had one quick comment about people expressing concern about what the person that buys that house could do with the property, but there's zoning regulations. And the properties in that area that are on Glacier Avenue have a broader, there are some, you can have some businesses and stuff, but the rest of it is zoned residential. So they could put a house on it, but and it's not big enough for an apartment building. So I think I don't think anybody would be able to do anything we would have a problem with. And my other question is, all these people are saying they want us to go through the discernment process, but I would like people to be thinking about how are we going to fund this, because there's not money in the budget for it. And that was expressed when the congregation last year voted to do it. They knew it was not in the budget. So if someone could provide ideas for the council to discuss on Tuesday, that would be great. That's it for me.
Yes. Thank you. I'm going to go to Mike McMullen here in the sanctuary, and then does Linda Mickle still have her hand raised?
Yes.
Okay, so Mike McMullen and then Linda Mickle.
In response to Lucy's comment, the council put $5,000 into the proposed budget for discernment in 2021.
Yes. So there is in 2021, we put $5,000 in the current budget proposal. So you can go through those lists and you'll see 5,000 specifically for discernment. That's only for 1 year. Maybe. I mean, we don't have, we're already 3 months in and we don't know when things are gonna, I mean, there's just so many things, but that was our best guess at what we could spend this year in the discernment process. But the other part to that coin is the discernment process takes 2 things. It takes time and it takes money. And the timeline and the time that we're going to have to be as a group to seriously look at what it is that we as a church want to do is going to be significant. Otherwise, the $5,000 that, or any monies that we spent, could very well fall to the wayside, and we haven't used it as we should. And knowing that this is not just a one or done type thing, this is a process, so we're gonna have to go through quite a process. In discussing it with the people that we talked about with discernment who do this as a professional, they were saying it's a 3-year process. So it's not just a one and done type thing. We really want to make sure that if we're going to spend the money in a discernment process, that we go through the process as members and as individuals to make sure that it's the best use of our assets. So we do have $5,000 in the current budget proposal. Which is a guess.
But the budget is right now not funded.
And the budget is not completely funded. So next, I have Linda Mickle had a hand raised. Please unmute, Linda.
Okay, got it. Can't read lips.
I know.
First of all, Dennis and I would really like to thank Jim Wilson again for all of his efforts in upgrading the Berg House and all of his time and money and heartache and probably bruised knuckles. Thanks again, Jim. And my request is, Karen, we've only seen a couple brief glimpses of the members that are sitting in the pews. Any chance that you could just go through and just give the names of the people that are there?
I sure can. So we have Randy and Lisa.
But Brad's gonna switch to the wide angle camera.
Oh, he's gonna switch to the wide angle. I'm still gonna name names, yes.
The pictures were too little for us, and unless you zoomed on each face, it was hard to see.
So we have Randy and Lisa Sutak, Pastor Karen and Brad Perkins, Dolores Graver, Jared Campbell,
okay, I don't know who that is.
Judy Ripley,
okay,
Mike McMullen, Julie Neihart,
good.
Bob and Loretta Mosley, David Braybaugh, Adam Garner, and myself.
Great, thank you very much for everyone for participating.
No problem. So I am going, if I don't see any other hands up, I don't want to cut people off, but I also don't want this to go on and on and on. This is a decision and a discussion that we felt was very important to begin the process. It may not end the process, we don't know. Knowing that we have one meeting a year in the Constitution, that doesn't mean we can't have special meetings, but we have one meeting a year. We wanted to put this on the agenda so that we can have this discussion and we can talk about the processes we want and how the 2021 proposed budget can meet those processes and what we want. So I thank you for some really good discussion. I look forward to all sorts of questions, and I think I can speak for all the council members, and I have some of them here who could jump up and say no, but we really appreciate any guidance, help, or assistance that you can give us. And Pastor Karen is going to close us in prayer.
Can I just, before you go, can I also give a thanks to the RCL Live Tech crew who had to work the sermon, work the service, and then stayed and had to work this because the service takes a lot out of us, and this also we had to work through this whole thing too, which takes a lot of us also. So thanks everyone for staying.
Karen,
Yes, it
This
was.
is Dan? Dan Witherell?
Yes.
I read the reports, Lois and I read them this morning for the past year, and I just want to congratulate everyone, Karen and Brad and yourself and Lisa and the other board members. I think this past year, you guys have done a fantastic job of particularly the electronic work that you've put forth. And I think you really deserve a lot of applause for that.
Well, I thank you, and the other thing that you can pretty soon, I think it's going to be either tomorrow morning, you can go on, you can not only just read the reports, you can watch our taped reports, which were, well, they were, yeah. They were recorded, taped. I'm dating myself. Our recorded reports so that, one, you can put a face with the people involved, but I think you guys understand our face. And the other thing is, I still haven't figured out 10 years and 20 pounds off, but that's a different story. But yes, our technical crew is amazing because in order for us to get this involved, they have really stepped up, and I appreciate that, because if I were running a meeting with Zoom and everything, it would not go as smoothly as it does. I can guarantee you that. So we will have Pastor Karen close us in prayer.
And just a point of privilege, because I have the mic. I want to especially thank, I'm a proud mom, my daughter Clarice and son-in-law Daniel, who are helping us out because they can. So thank you also, Clarice and Daniel, for your voluntold time. Yes. Now I ask those in the congregation to stand as you are able. Those online, choose the positions that's best for you, and we're going to pray the prayer our Lord taught. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.